Sean, I'm excited, man. I am a longtime fan of Halo.
Oh.
I've been playing the game since the first one came out.
Oh, okay.
And just saw the first episode of the TV show.
Okay.
Loved it. I thought it was
thank
awesome. I know, I was building you.
Listen, fans. I don't think a day went by when I wasn't thinking of the fans of the show, because I mean I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking about it if the game wasn't a success. And I've learned about its history and how many people are playing it at every one given time. So anyway, so thank you. I'm very. It means a lot.
No, I'm excited, man. You had talked about in the panel, you didn't know a lot about it. You were kind of familiar with it. You saw your nephews play it.
Yeah.
And I think you can kind of attest to, I'm a much later fan of other series like Star Wars and Star Trek. I became a fan later. And I think you could attest, like, it's just cool to see something, a show that I used to play when I was little, like, and now it has a live action thing. What made you fall in love?
Well, from just a music challenge point of view, I was very excited about the challenge of it, because it's an ecosystem, a universe, and a story that's got a 21-year history of rich history. And this was going to be a separate canon, which was understood. But it was under the umbrella of the Halo universe, which had these characters in it that I just thought the characters were so. I mean, don't get me wrong, the gameplay and the action is extraordinary. But I really was dialed into the characters, and I think I said this at the event. I was interviewed a year ago, right as we were entering year 2 of the pandemic, and I really thought the Master Chief was just a very interesting character for our times, because he starts to awaken to some dormant reality of who he is, about his truth. And there's a humanity involved in connecting with that, and he's asking questions about, like, who am I? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing for the right reasons? And I mean, I've had conversations with my friends and family that are asking these kinds of questions during the pandemic. We're questioning what's important to us. And I said that to the people who I was interviewing with. I said, I think these are the things that we connect with in the story. And don't get me wrong, I mean, the beauty and the imagery of the stuff is, the imagery of the story is beautiful, but I was really struck by Quan and these characters. And they all have their individual stories coming up, which are just fascinating. So it was a very challenging project in terms of the size and scope, but I was so wanting to maintain the respect of where this game comes from, where this experience comes from, where the show comes from. So we use the themes, from the game occasionally. I actually used them more than they wanted at first, because they wanted the show to have its own definition. But when you do hear them, it kind of is. It's cool.
Exactly. I think that storyline is what has carried it all these years, right? The storyline itself, it just has a lot of strong elements to it.
Yes.
And you had mentioned in the panel you didn't realize that Master Chief never took his helmet off. What other elements did you not know that were fun for you, that were surprised that you might have found out later?
Well, I didn't realize that. I knew the Halo, what it was. I didn't understand its being a weapon. I didn't really quite connect that, but now I understand what it was. And then I learned a lot more detail about the Halo itself, that it's a 10,000-mile ring with every ecosystem in the world, every possible ecosystem around it there. I mean, those were fun things. And then you learn about the history of the artifacts and the particular connection certain people have to touching things. That was very juicy.
Yeah. Do you remember, like, when you got first introduced to the Covenant?
To the what?
Well, to the Covenant.
Yeah.
To the Brutes. To the Flood. Like, do you remember your first initial, like, reactions to them?
Well, let me see now. The mushroom ship is that's the Covenant vessel.
Yeah.
The very first time I saw that, and how large it was, because it was like, and it was fairly rendered. I was like, oh man, that's first of all, the imagination of it with its tendrils in it. I mean, it has a natural sense of visual menace, and I don't know how you do that with like someone had to design it. Someone had to design it, and it really looks and then the voice of the I forgot his, I'm sorry, I'm still forgetting the names, but the priest, the people in the council. I was so I was so interested in the sound of their room and so forth. So it was always really, even when it wasn't fully CGI'd rendered, even when it wasn't rendered, you saw some of the actors, you still got the essence of the performance and stuff. But then once you started seeing it come together with the graphics and the later cuts, it was pretty. It just got more exciting. It's like driving. It's like driving towards. You see the mountains, and as you drive closer to it, you see more definition, and you get more excited because you see more detail. That's how it was when we were getting the show together.
With that too, what was it like working on something like Jessica Jones and then going to something like Halo?
Jessica Jones. It's funny. Someone told me that the MCU universe was, when you have the Jessica Jones character, they save the world, but the Iron Mans, they're saving the universe. Right. And so Jessica Jones was what they both have in common is I think their characters are really, really interesting. They connect with something in us. Jessica Jones was kind of a loner. She didn't want to be. I don't think the character. I think she liked connecting with other people, but had a hard time doing so. And in the comic book, she smoked and drank. It was really fascinating. She was female, which in the '90s was a unique new component to storytelling. The Master Chief, it's so much. The world is. There are so many different worlds that he pervades. Although we are anchored to the Master Chief, her storyline. But he's there's a human being in that person. And one thing I really wanted to do when it came to the main title, someone explained to me, a Microsoft person explained to me that he doesn't take off his helmet. That means anybody who's playing the game can imagine themselves as that person playing. So you could be male, female, any gender. So when I did the opening Halo theme in the main title, it's the original Gregorian chant theme, but it's with a low female singer and a cello. And it's sort of, the cello is the range of the human voice. So no matter what gender you are, cello can kind of hit your voice, and then the low female alto it's almost male or female, or anywhere in between. So I just wanted it to be accessible. I wanted that opening melody to kind of be an accessible kind of color, if that makes any sense. It's hard to describe music, but in the end, it's about the characters. So you just got to find their heart and their journey.
I was curious. I've actually been lucky. I've seen the first two. They sent me the first two. And in the first one, as you know, they hit the ground running, there's our raid.
Yeah.
And right there when they're going splat, I was like, well, this is not the kids show that we thought it was going to be. I'm in. But the second one, complete change of tone. It's more, reconnecting with his past, establishing more. That's got to be very challenging to go from an action-oriented, up-tempo story to now we've got an episode that's more character-driven. There's not a lot of action.
Yeah.
But yet it's going to ramp right up again very quickly.
Yeah. And it's a great question because in show 2 I found it really interesting because I worked on the pilot, and then there was the main battle in the beginning of the first episode. They weren't able to shoot it because of COVID, so I didn't actually see that until that was the last thing I saw in the pilot. So I actually went on to show 2 before I went back to show 1 to score the battle, and so we were kind of hopscotching.
Quite a big gap of time between it.
Not a lot.
Okay, but still.
But the flashback to Master Chief and his youth and Soren, that was so interesting to me because now you see the nature of their relationship as adults. And but I had his theme written, and you're right. There was a lot of exposition in show 2, and I know for some people, I hope fans appreciate that. As far as I'm concerned, everyone I served and worked for really wanted to make a great show, and I know it's hard to please everybody. I think the character of Halsey for me was one of the most interesting characters because it was hard to kind of understand. She's almost, to me personally, almost a little sociopathic in her commitment to certain things. And I find her to be really interesting because she's on different lines. Soren is just a hoot. I thought of him as almost Han Solo-like in his independence. independence. And of course, the Master Chief is sort of evolving. I discovered the Master Chief along with every fan. I'm just doing it earlier, and so and then the third one has a. I can't. I hope you really enjoy it. I will say that there are some episodes where I just finished the 9th episode, the last one. I've never worked on a more intense hour of content. I mean, in terms of battles, story, humans, everything else. That was really a joy to do. It was. I have the bags in my eyes to prove it. But I'm very fond of this universe. I'm very fond of it.
I think they were smart taking their time. I mean, there were all these stories about changes of directions before they went filming, but I think once they locked in, they at least seem to be, we're not going to retell the video game.
Yep.
We're going to tell our own story from a more mature standpoint, but we're going to be faithful to the game series. And I think they've done a good job of that.
Man, honestly, I'm so happy that just getting this feedback, because from the musical point of view, when you're playing a game, the immersion of music in a game-playing active experience is really something. But it's different from a cinema viewing experience, because you want to still be engaged, but it is different. And I wanted to kind of have the score be as immersive as it could, without self-consciously getting in the way of the story, as you're saying. So we worked very hard to sort of honor the spirit and the sonorities of the game and the themes when relevant. And that part, I had to go to school. I had to go to a school. Microsoft had a little online education about Halo. Even people who knew the game went and resaw it, just so they could understand the dynamics of the war and then the new worlds and so forth.
Oh, it's confusing. I had not played a lot of them since the second.
Right.
I went back in and did Infinite, and I had to go back and look up. Oh, well, that's right. That's what happened in 3, and this is what happened. Yeah.
That's why themes were really important. So we had, there's a specific color for the Covenant. There's a specific color for John, Quan, Singali or Singali. I never know how to pronounce it right, but I think it's Singali. But those are the bad. Those guys were crazy, scary.
How much inspiration did you pull from older soundtracks, from the comic books, how much did you get, or did you just want to create something completely new?
Well, I was encouraged and directed to that. They were very specific that they wanted to not have it be. They wanted it to have its own unique thread and flavor. But, and I said this just a little while ago, it's sort of like someone sent me an article about how when they redesigned the Corvette, the original redesign was so radical that people didn't feel a connection to the car, to the legacy of the car. So you have to create new, but you have to have it. You have to have a connection, and the connection has to be authentic. And so I listened to the game music just to sort of immerse myself in the idea of how experiential it was. But I started to write the new themes and try to get sound design colors really quickly, and we worked all the time on calibrating that so that we would have a good experience. It's different from. I was thinking, someone was asking me if the metaphor was like Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and stuff like that, because Mandalorian is its own color, really unique color. I felt that Halo, because of its game history and so forth, the characters from the game in this thread, that there was a bit. I had to really be very considerate, always checking in, always calibrating and checking in on that connection to make sure that it was respectful and authentic and accurate. Yeah, I just finished the 9th episode, so I'm a little weary, but it's nice to talk about it because now I've seen all 9, and I really hope you enjoy it. I will say as much. I love the first 2, but I think even the next 6, next 7 are even better.
Sean, it's such a pleasure, man.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, it was
Guys,
wonderful.
send me your gamer tags. We can game